Hey guys, Jim from Cybertronic Studios here, and I just watched Transformers Age of Extinction last night. I've had a night to sleep over it. I have my notes right here, and I'm going to kind of ramble on about it. This is going to be my review, and it's going to be completely unedited, so I'm going to ramble on a bit, and it's going to be quite long. So just skip to this time code for my final thoughts if you don't want to sit through a full, boring review. But I'm going to say this review anyway, and I hope you enjoy this. Here are my thoughts on Transformers Age of Extinction. This is going to be spoiler free, and I'm going to have a spoiler talk later on. Was Age of Extinction good? Yes, I thought it was good. Was it a piece of art? Was it like a masterpiece? No, it wasn't. It's a Transformers movie. You don't go in expecting that kind of thing. But it was fun, and it did try to be better than the others, and in many respects it was. In many respects it was. I do think it was one of the better films of the franchise. Here are some of the good things. Let's start with the good things, head on, transition to the mixed bag things, and then transition to the bad things about this movie. My number one thing that I thought that this film did really well was characterization. This film did characterization of the humans and the robots, especially the robots, much better than the previous films. I felt that the Yeager family, especially Kate Yeager, was a much more interesting protagonist than Sam Witwicky was in the original films. I felt that the family element that he brought was more interesting than the family element first distinguished in the first film with Witwicky and his parents. Mark Wahlberg did quite a good job as portraying Kate Yeager. It wasn't his best role, it wasn't the best acting in the world, but it was some of the best acting in this movie. Not the best acting in this movie, but some of it, and some of the higher acting in the Transformers series as a whole. I think that the whole cast refresh was refreshing. I think that, sure, some people are going to be like, oh, it's new characters that we don't care about. Well, that's what they do sometimes with movies, and I think that we've had 3 films of Witwicky and his friends, and I think that that was enough. That was a full, concise trilogy, and there it goes. And this is a new one with a new cast of characters, so I can't wait to see the further adventures of Marky Mark and the Autobot bunch. The Autobots has some really great characterization, especially Optimus Prime. I really loved how they treated Optimus Prime as a character in this one, and not just the stoic leader archetype, like they did in the first 3 movies. He's not just an action hero, blah, blah, blah. He's reacting to what's happening in this film. He's confused. He doesn't know exactly what to do. He has a character arc that goes through this movie. And I feel that if you're an Optimus Prime fan, which I am, then you're going to enjoy this movie just for that alone. The thing that was one of the most redeeming factors of this movie for me was the Autobot characterization, mostly because I'm a Transformers fanboy. The Autobots were characters in this film. It actually centered, for the most part, on the Autobots. The Autobots were memorable. There was Hound, Drift, Crosshairs, and then returning was Bumblebee, Optimus, and Brains, and some other characters. They were legitimately characterized, while not all of them were as characterized in depth, each one had a character moment, and they weren't a perfect team. They were kind of a ragtag team that, Optimus had to kind of rein in a little bit, which I find is an interesting take, because usually, the Transformers stuff is always, Autobots are good guys, and they're all here together, they're all family. No, this is kind of a dysfunctional family, but a family nonetheless, and Optimus Prime is the uncertain father. He is, not going to go into too much detail because I don't want to spoil things, but Optimus has such an interesting character in this film, in my opinion. Optimus Prime, his character overall is such an improvement from the last 3 films. And, it's almost a journey for him, and he finds, he's in a dark place in the beginning of this movie. I'm not going to spoil it, but he's in a dark place. And throughout the movie, he gradually is brought out of this dark place by his relationship with the Yeager family and by his friendship with Kate Yeager, who trusted Optimus and brought him out of this dark time, which I felt was a very strong connection that this film really did get right, was the human Autobot connection between Cade and Optimus. One thing I really did like also was Optimus Prime in his evasion mode. Not going to give too much away, but in his first mode in this show, in this movie, man, I just gotta say, that makes me really want to get the toy, because ILM did a great job on at least the evasion mode Optimus. If anything you want to say about the graphics of this film, or the CGI of this film, the one thing you cannot bash at all is the beginning scenes with Optimus, because he looks fantastic. Especially in his robot form, especially his transformation looked really awesome. Another thing I really did like about this film was the portrayal of the villains. Lockdown is easily one of the most intimidating villains of the franchise, in my opinion. He's a bounty hunter, and he's just... yeah, he was just so interesting. You know, he had his own agenda, but he wasn't, like, in it just to be evil. You know, he didn't necessarily want to kill all the humans. He just, bounty hunter. I'm trying not to be spoilery here. It's, I'll go deeper into a spoiler review later. Human villains. Attinger, played by Kelsey Grammer, was the main human villain. He's a CIA agent, and let me tell you, unlike in Dark of the Moon, where Patrick Dempsey's character, his only motivation was, my family did it, so I'm gonna do it, and I just want to be evil. Attinger's motivation is clear. He has a motivation as a human villain, and he's almost a heroic villain in a way, and so you can actually connect with him in that, and why you don't agree with him, you can understand where he's coming from and trying to do what he's doing. So yeah, the human villain was very interesting as well, and Galvatron was quite interesting. That's all I can say about that without getting too much into spoiler territory. This time there was a clear theme and message. The other ones had a clear theme and message too, to some extent, maybe not clear, but they had a theme and message, and they tried to shove them down your throat. This one, it doesn't try to shove it down your throat. Like in, let's say, Revenge of the Fallen, you could tell that the message was, I just want to be normal. Sam wants to be normal. Oh no, he's not normal. And then in Dark of the Moon, it was, I just want to be special again. I want not the messenger. I want to be... Here, it's more of a subtle tone of family. That's the main message here, is trying to protect your family. Optimus has his family of Autobots that he's trying to protect, and Cade Yeager has his family of literal family he's trying to protect. The Dinobots were awesome. They were, unfortunately, not in it that long, and they didn't really have as much character development. They didn't have any character development, to be honest. They were kind of just there. But they were pretty awesome. Not going into too much spoilers. I hope that wasn't a spoiler for you. But the Dinobots were awesome. Their action scenes were interesting. Comedy was better this time around. Sure, it was, it could be a little dumb at times, but there were quite a few chuckle-worthy moments, and from what I could tell, I can't even remember any toilet humor at all. There was no toilet dirty humor at all. There was some dumb humor, but there was no toilet potty robot humping leg humor. Stanley Tucci was awesome. Enough said. The voice cast was spectacular. The crown jewels were Peter Cullen and Frank Welker, voices of Optimus Prime and Galvatron. They were pretty great, even though they might not have had the most speaking lines you could possibly have in a film. They were great. Also, Hound. John Goodman as Hound was an extreme standout. You could tell John Goodman was having fun, and the voice portrayal actually made you care about Hound. Again, you care about these characters, especially in the voice portrayals. All of them. Crosshairs by John DiMaggio, Drift by Ken Watanabe, I believe. Bumblebee by random radio voice. You care about these robot characters. And that's what I don't get about some reviews that I've been reading. It's like, it's a whole bunch of new humans you don't care about and a whole bunch of new robots you don't care about. Well, I can argue that in this movie, by the end of this movie, you care more, at least in my opinion, I cared. And I can argue that the moviegoer would care more about these new characters by the end of this movie than they cared about most of the other Autobots by the end of the trilogy. Because they had character development. They were there. They had personalities. You know, during the battle, you know, I cared about how these characters were fighting, and I cared about what would happen to them, you know? And unlike in the other movies where it was just like, oh, robots are pew-pew. So the voice cast was spectacular. Mainly Peter Cullen, Frank Welker, and John Goodman. I also really did like the song Battle Cry, and I liked how it was integrated and changed into the score. Steve Jablonsky did a good time this time around. Not his best in the movies, but not his worst either. I think that his score did really help make you feel in this movie as much as you possibly could. Mixed bags. ILM, you guys are great at visual effects. Keep doing what you do. But in this movie, there were some certain points that you weren't up to snuff. Like, for the most part, the effects in this movie are as good or even better than they are in the previous films. But there are some certain points, there are some certain periods in the movie where you just... It's almost as if they didn't finish it, and you can tell, and it kind of pulls you out of it. You know, it's not up to the same par as earlier parts of the movie or even later parts of the movie. It doesn't really happen, however, until about the last half of the film. For the first half, the CG is completely great, and then it just kind of, some parts kind of muddle around at some points. Hey guys, sorry about that, just cut because I had to do some stuff. Okay, let's get back. Plot. I feel that the plot is a bit convoluted at times. Same kind of concept as with the ILM effects. Like, the beginning of the movie, it starts off really strong, the plot makes sense. Sure, it follows closely to some of the formula set by the originals, but it's interesting, you know, there's a whole new human antagonistic development there. It's very interesting, and it's together and it's tight, and the plot lines make sense. And then some way about halfway through the movie, it gets very convoluted, and by the end, it's just a whole mix mash. It suffers from the Spider-Man 3, aka Amazing Spider-Man 2 syndrome of having too many villains. There are, not going to spoil anything too much, but there are two main robotic antagonists. There's like two human antagonists, and there's also another hinted antagonist. It's all muddled together, and you know, if there was one robot antagonist and it remained that, and then the other one was teased for a sequel, then that would be fine. But it's almost as if they jammed both of them in there and then still teased one of them for the sequel, which made no sense. That brings me to another point, which is they have so much undeveloped information because of the sequel. They are setting up for a sequel, a trilogy. The producer came out a few weeks ago and said, oh, we're taking this one movie at a time and we have not considered a trilogy or anything. That's a bunch of crap, because this movie sets up for a sequel so hard that it's almost as if it's meant to be a part one of a trilogy and not a standalone movie. It doesn't feel quite right as a standalone movie because of that. Also, some of the story feels like it contradicts the backstory set by the previous films, like the Allspark and the Primes and all that. But maybe they're just setting it up to be all tied together in a bow in a future installment. Who knows? Maybe it's just like that. But because of that, this film is very hard as a standalone film, and a lot of things are very difficult to understand, especially since there are a lot of things that go completely unexplained. Overall, the movie had a good, strong, interesting plot for the first hour and a half, and then halfway through it got convoluted. Pretty much it. Certain plot points could be minimized. In fact, even maybe a few specific plot arcs could be completely cut from the movie, and it would still have the same central theme and same message and same basic plot. Here's the bad stuff. My biggest problem, and probably most people's biggest problem, is the editing and pacing of this film. This film is 2 hours and 46 minutes long. It is spectacularly, stupidly long. Again, it starts off good and well-paced and well-edited at the beginning, then halfway through, the pacing just kind of stops making sense, and the editing quality just cuts down dramatically. Not like, the quality of the cuts, but the quality of where the cuts are made and how many of them there are and what scenes go where. That kind of thing. That editing gets sloppy. Some people say you can cut a whole hour from this film. I'd say you could cut at least 20 minutes from this film and it would still make sense and it would still be a good film. There are 2 complete scenes that I could see being cut and it would not affect the film negatively in any way. And that's just 2 scenes. With more fine-tuned editing and cutting of certain little teeny things that don't need to be there or rearranging things, I feel that the film could be even better. So that's the big thing. It feels very long. There are some points where I'm not necessarily bored, but I'm not quite entertained because there's things going on the screen, but it doesn't commit intrigue or suspense or anything interesting. It's just happening. So there's some stuff like that, and that's mainly the pacing and the editing. Shane, Tessa's boyfriend. His character felt completely unnecessary to me. He does literally, I think one thing in order to progress the plot, and that's pretty much it. Otherwise, it's just in there to force the relationship and force the kind of father-daughter dispute thing, which doesn't feel good to me. It just feels kind of shoved in there. Dialogue is sloppy throughout, not gonna lie. It's not the entire thing, it's not like the entire thing is a cheese fest of dialogue, but when the dialogue is bad, it's bad. Especially when, one-liners are awesome in this, and the robot's dialogue is pretty good. It's just the kind of human dialogue that can get very sloppy, especially when it's exposition time. You can tell when that's coming on just by the dialogue and how it's changing. But other than that, overall, I think it was a very fun movie that tried hard to fix all of the things that were wrong in the first 3, especially in the first half. If you take the quality of the first half of the film and spread it throughout the entire film, then this film would be much better. Again, it's not a piece of art, but it is visually stunning. ILM, not throughout the entire film, but ILM really shines in this film, especially in certain key scenes and certain key points. ILM, their CG really shines. I really like the movie. Great robot designs, I think. It was a fun movie. Even without thinking too much about my fanboyism, it's still a fun movie, in my opinion. To those, this is going to be kind of a mini rant. I've heard so many little Twitter things that say, if you go see Transformers, you're part of the problem. Don't see Transformers because it's creating an uncreative Hollywood. If people like a kind of movie, they can like that movie. Sure, it's not art. Sure, critics don't like it. Whatever. But you can't judge people for liking something. That's just stupid. That's like saying, oh, what book you're reading? Oh, it's just a little romantic novel. Well, you're stupid. Romantic novels are ruining the entire book industry. You're feeding money into something that's ruining an entire thing. But I like it. Then you're stupid for liking it. It's just... It's just... You can hate this film. That is justified. I don't. But bash this film all you want. But don't bash people for liking it. Don't say people are stupid. Don't put yourself in a holier-than-thou place just because you think that the movie is bad and therefore everyone who likes it is stupid. There are really enjoyable things about this film for certain people. You know, if you like Michael Bay's films, you'll love this film. If you like the Transformers movie so far, you'll love this film. The action is spectacular, and that's mainly what this is. It's an action film, you know? And, you know, as far as pandering to the Transformers fans, it does a really great job too. You know, it does quite a few things wrong. But people don't recognize that it also does quite a lot of things right. Things that the first three movies didn't get right at all. So just don't be, like, criticizing other people for liking it, because there's plenty to like about the movie. And don't criticize people who hate it, because there's plenty to hate about the movie. My final thoughts. The first half of this film presents a dream Transformers film. It presents a film that is well-paced, that has good character, not so great dialogue, but good character, good main focus on the Autobots, good action, interesting bioethical dilemmas with the Autobots and the human interaction. But about halfway through, it kind of falls apart and becomes essentially Dark of the Moon-esque quality. But that's not necessarily a bad thing. And I think that the first half of this movie, if you're willing to sit through the second half, the first half of this movie is worth going to as a film. After the second half, that's when all the editing gets off, the plot gets off, when ILM's CG starts to wibble a little bit. That being said, the Autobots are actually the focus of this movie. It's strange that we've gotten 3 Transformers movies, and the 4th one is the one where the Autobots take center stage. For me, at least as a Transformers fan, that's enough to forgive a lot of these flaws. Objectively, if you like the previous movies, you're gonna like this one. It's easily one of the best movies of the franchise, in my opinion. You know, it's not like the number 1, but I'd say it's either tied for 1 or number 2. Yeah, I completely understand why someone would not like this film. It's no means perfect. It was, for me, however, a fun joyride, and that's what I like to go to the movies for. I like to go see the artful stuff, and I like to see the fun joyride stuff. And it really does try, especially in the first half, to be the Transformers movie that everyone wants it to be. If we end up getting a full trilogy out of this film, and the trilogy ends up having better movies, and this film actually, with all the setup that it's trying to do, actually pays off well, then I think this film is worth it, especially if the next movie or the next 2 movies end up being better. Count me excited. So, with that said, I give this film a 7.5 out of 10. I really liked it. You know, as a moviegoer, as a Transformers fan, I really did like it, and I hope you do too. If you don't, I understand, but please, please, please don't go criticizing other people for liking it. You know, that's just how it is. You can criticize the movie all you want, but don't criticize the people, because everyone has different opinions, okay? You hate the movie? I don't care. You like the movie? I don't care. I like the movie, okay? Okay. That being said, I'm done. I know this has been long. I've ranted. I'm sorry. I'm not going to edit this, so you're going to have to sit through it. I apologize. But hey, thank you for watching if you did. And I am out.